Hello, everyone. It's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm here with Lori Kleiman. Lori, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with your audience.
So, Lori, you're an expert in HR and you provide consulting, training, speaking, right, really to help companies solve their HR headaches. Let's go back in time a little bit. Like, how did you actually even get into HR?
Okay, well, there is a little funny story of how I actually got into HR. It goes all the way back to my collegiate days when I thought I was going to be an accountant, and I went to university and realized that that world was too sterile for me, and I
Right.
wanted something that involved more people. And so I found a degree called industrial sociology, and it was really the forefront of HR. And so that was my major, and I joined my family business back in 1985 when I graduated college and started as the HR director there.
Mm. And what was that family business doing?
So the interesting thing about that family business is my grandfather had started it, and we were a commercial photo lab, which
Very
was great, and we were doing really well. And then the smartphones came out, and that was kind of the end of the world of commercial photography.
right. And so, from that experience of kind of running HR in the family company, what happened next? Like, I want if you could take us through from that point to now, Lori is the consultant. What happened in between?
So what happened was I began to see the writing on the wall, as did most of my family, and had to figure out what I was going to do next.
Mm,
So I decided that I was going to open a consulting company for small, teeny businesses that didn't need their own HR person. And I would be able to run that from the basement of my home while I was raising my three kids. And it would be a perfect lifestyle business, cottage industry. And that was my goal. So I
mm,
set out to do that. And I know a lot of your listeners are thinking of that transition from a regular paycheck to entrepreneurship. What I was able to do that was great, that helped bridge the gap, is that I actually took a very high level temp job essentially with a bank in town. And
right.
so I worked for them a couple days a week while I was getting my business off the ground. And I went out and presented to small businesses that didn't have HR people. And slowly but surely, I got one customer after another because the need was so enormous. And it was terrific. I loved what I was doing, but it quickly became that I needed more help.
Right. So you need some HR help for your HR
Right.
consulting.
I
Yeah.
needed HR help for my HR business.
Right. So actually, Laura, before you go on, because I want to continue that this story is I think really interesting, and I
Okay.
want to kind of map through the progression. But before doing that, you mentioned you just you started going out and giving presentations to companies, essentially having kind of sales conversations with them about
Right.
what you could offer. How did you do that? Because people will be listening, and we have kind of a spectrum of different consultants and people that listen to the show, whether people who are running multi-million-dollar consulting business, all the way to those who are looking at becoming consultants. But regardless of what stage people are at, still the importance of getting in front of ideal clients consistently and having conversations remains really key. So how did you actually find those people, and how did you get in front of them?
So, this is probably my favorite takeaway that I share with entrepreneurs all the time. I started going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting and going to women's networking groups and blah, 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 and didn't really feel like I was getting a ton of traction. I was
Right.
meeting lovely people,
Yeah.
but it wasn't necessarily. What really was the turning point and made my business what it became was identifying the vertical partners of my clients. So
Mm,
here's the example I'm going to give you. And no matter what your industry is, listening to this, you've got these power partners as well. So I was going after small businesses that were frustrated by their lack of knowledge in HR. So the first thing is understanding who you're really going for.
yeah.
I ended up aligning myself with one big payroll company in the United States and insurance brokers. And those were people that were meeting the same people I wanted to meet, but did not have solutions for their HR problems. And I did no referral fee. I didn't take money from them. I didn't pay a fee.
Yeah.
But they brought me in to client after client after client. And I was
Why
able
did they
to
do
return
that?
the favor.
Like what was the benefit for them? What was the reason for them to bring you in?
Because, for instance, let's say we've got a payroll company and they want a business to switch over to their service. Often the pushback was, it's too hard. I don't have anyone here who can do that for me. I don't, it's just and so the salesperson would say, well, would you be willing to meet with a partner we have? She comes in on a project basis and she'll get you up and going in 2 or 3 weeks.
So,
for the insurance broker, it was, their client was asking them to help with open enrollment, to help with COBRA, and they would say, we don't do that, but we have somebody who can.
Got it. And how did you go about getting those meetings, right? So there's lots of insurance brokers or payroll companies, but not all of them are necessarily maybe they are, but you would think that not all are necessarily open to and searching for partners like you or consultants that offer those services. And I think probably a natural reaction for most consultants listening to this is, yeah, I don't want to bother these people, and how to actually even get them to be interested, and how to actually, set up that meeting. So what approach did you use? And if you remember kind of any language that you used to reach out through, email or phone calls or whatever you were doing, just kind of take us through what that looked like.
Well, I have to tell you, those were the other people showing up at the Chamber of Commerce meetings and all the other places.
Right.
And so I would say to them, do you go in and try to present your product, but here we don't have HR, so I have no way to implement this.
Yeah.
Let's talk together. So you have to tell them why your solution will sell their product.
Right. And how long did it take for you from starting to have those initial conversations to the point where you were actually getting business through those referrals and introductions? How much time was in between?
It was different with different partners, but I really just a couple months. Either they understood the benefit or I moved on to someone else.
Right.
I didn't spend a lot of time with that insurance broker who said to me, oh no, we've got it. Or I already move on.
I think that's such an important lesson, right? Because a lot of people in terms of their marketing and nurture and follow up, they just try and keep pounding over and over people who aren't really buyers. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to you should neglect them completely, but certain people are ready to engage a lot sooner. And so you want to shift your focus to those that are ready to buy or are ready to have that conversation. So I think that's a really good insight that you're sharing there. So once you start to see that working for you, did you continue to go to the same Chamber of Commerce meetings, or did you go now to other ones? Like what happened, and how did you kind of scale or grow that opportunity?
So what I started doing a little bit further down the business path was I sent my younger people as sort of a development opportunity. This really allowed me to build the business to the point I ended up with 7 people working in the basement of my home.
Right. I'm hoping it's a good sized basement.
Yes. Well, it wasn't big enough. And I can tell you about the great way I ended that business. But what I started doing, for instance, in the payroll company, was then we would network within that company, so that I needed to get to know then all of their different salespeople.
Right.
And then with the insurance brokers, I really picked 2 or 3 that I just partnered with a lot. They've got a lot of clients. You don't need zillions, and you don't need everyone. And you want to offer it as a bit of a special service they can bring in that every other insurance broker in town didn't have. So
Right.
they didn't really want me working with, but I worked with probably 4 insurance brokers, but only 1 payroll company.
Got it. And so from those 4 insurance brokers and 1 payroll company, how many different clients would you say that, you landed or engaged with?
Hundreds. I mean,
Got it.
I couldn't even,
Okay.
that was our marketing strategy. We
Yeah.
did, we were out in the community doing some things, but that was we didn't do any real direct marketing to end users. We
Right.
worked through these people.
Got it. And I want to make this really like tangible and actionable for people. So once you start to build that relationship with one, let's say, salesperson in the insurance company, one kind of broker, what did you say or do to get deeper into that organization and have them introduce you to their colleagues?
Asked. I mean,
That's
just
it?
simply. So a lot of times what I would say is, can I come to a sales meeting and
Mm,
talk about the work we're doing together? I would recommend to listeners that think about getting in with the sales manager, the VP of sales, and I would just go in and do presentations about what we do and why it could help them close their deals
yeah.
if they brought us in.
100%. So you're really focusing on the value that it can bring to them, right? It's not about you and your business and how many clients you could get through this kind of collaboration. It's all about what value you could add to their business and how it increases lifetime value for them or closes the deal faster or whatever it might be. And then they're more willing to engage further in a conversation or look at opportunities to work together.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, so now let's go back to the story that you were telling. So you're building this business in the basement. Things are rolling. You're getting clients all through attending these events that leads to introductions and projects that way. You get it up to 7 people. So just talk us through like what happened when between the time when it was just you in your basement to you and 7 people.
Perfect. So my business model, and I think it's also interesting for maybe some of your viewers, was that if we came in and did on-site human resources, we charged about 50% of our typical consulting rate. And that was all flat fee business. And my thought behind that model was that was what was going to pay my fixed expenses.
Right.
But it took about 15 hours a week of an employee. So every time I got one of those clients, I had to hire a new person.
Right.
So the pricing with the client was such that it covered a new person's full-time salary. And then all the consulting work we could add on was the profit.
Got
So
it.
that was the business model. So we basically added a new full-time person every time I got 2 on-site accounts. So you need a very good metric of when you're going to start hiring, I think. And so that's how we got to 7. We ended up with 7 over an 8-year period.
Got it. Okay, so 7 over an 8-year period. And then those 7 within, let's say, a 12-month period, typically how many clients were you working with at the peak, within that 12-month period?
So they would typically, when we had 7, we would have 2 or 3 on-site accounts, and they would do probably 8 to 10 projects a year. So we probably had 100 clients a year going through our business.
And can you give us a sense of kind of like what revenue was at when you had those 7 people?
Yeah, we were up to about $1 million in sales.
Got it.
And I talk about that publicly all the time.
Sure. Okay. So what's interesting is you mentioned you went into this with the idea of raising 3 kids, lifestyle, cottage business, and now you're talking about having 7 team members that obviously you're managing and needing to kind of work with. What happened? Like what was the shift? What caused you to say, okay, the cottage is for sale, and I'm back to the city, and I'm making things happen, and I'm just talking kind of metaphorically here, but like, what was the shift, and what was the decision, the turning point for you to make that switch?
So one funny story in the shift is that my son, who at that point was a freshman in college, came home, was sitting on the couch in his boxers watching the news, and one of my employees went upstairs for a cup of coffee. And I said, we got to do something. So I knew that either we had to go get a proper office somewhere, which was going to mean a lot more fixed expense for me, or what. And I got a call from one of my employees. This is how serendipitous the world can be, was at a seminar with someone from Arthur J. Gallagher, which is a huge insurance company. And the woman she was by coincidence sitting next to turned to her and said, she knew she was in the HR space, "We need to find an HR consulting company to acquire, da 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 da." She brought me back the business card and said, "I don't know if you want to talk to this lady." Long story short, within about 3 months, I had a deal with Arthur J. Gallagher, and they bought my consulting company and agreed, and that was part of the deal. They kept all my employees on, same salary, great deal, better benefits, all that kind of stuff. And me too. And we all moved to a proper office with Arthur J. Gallagher.
And so I want to go actually back up even further, because you started this off right as a very kind of intentional lifestyle business, cottage, as you said, industry. But what happened between that and the decision to actually just bring on 7 people or start to actually add employees? Like what made you make that switch before the acquisition?
Really, it was that the word was getting out that we were doing this, and people really weren't doing this. And there was more business than I knew what to do with, and I didn't know how to say no to people. And then I brought in the right kind of employees that I loved working with. So slowly, one after another, it just happened. Obviously the money was good.
Right.
And because I was continuing to enjoy it, to do it the way I wanted to do it on my terms, that's why I allowed it to grow.
So to this point, everything sounds really good. The business is growing, referrals, introductions are coming in. But looking back, what was one of the greatest challenges that you faced? What was just a tough situation or a big kind of learning experience for you?
Back then, so now we're talking like 2005, 2004. We knew we needed technology that could drive systems. We knew that we needed a place and a way to maintain replicatable work, so that when a client signed on with us, they knew they were going to get a project done the way I committed as the salesperson.
Right.
And back then, there were not apps and programs and systems you could just buy. So I actually I spent $35,000 probably creating a system that never really worked right. It was good in concept. I will tell you today, you would just use Asana or Trello or one of those. And you would be on their free system and it would do everything I was trying to do. So really back then, I would say it was the technology. We didn't even have wireless networks. Our computers were all hooked together by cords all over my basement.
Right.
So back then it was technology for sure.
Okay. And so now let's talk about the acquisition. So the acquisition, it sounds like it was a pretty smooth process. Was there a lot of due diligence and back and forth, or just kind of talk us through how that all worked and whatever you're able to share?
Yeah. No, it's fine. I can share most of it. So the due diligence was beyond easy because Gallagher is a Fortune 500 publicly traded corporation. They were used to doing acquisitions of 20, 50, $70 million regular businesses. They came for their due diligence visit. I still know about it. I laugh about it. 4 men came. They brought the accountant, the head of IT, somebody from marketing, They came down to my basement and they said, "Really?" I said, "Really? This is it." They had scheduled 2 days to be on site. I told them, "You don't need to be on site for 2 days." They said, "This is it?" I said, "Yeah." I tried to tell you people that. And they said, good, then our due diligence is everything has to go. You know, the only thing they did in due diligence was verify invoices and checks from my clients that my sales were truly what they represented to be.
Right.
But as it came to the technology and they're like, all this is going. Those guys just sort of sat around and visited. So, but they will come in. And this, for anybody thinking of selling their business down the road, they want to see check deposits, copies of checks, copies of invoices, making sure that everything matched up. And at that point, my sister was the bookkeeper. We did everything on QuickBooks, sort of ourselves. Right. And they had a lot of questions about transactions that they just sort of said, whatever. At the end of the day.
And how did that work out for you? So, I mean, to sell the business, I guess first, even I'm wondering, like, how did it work out financially? Let's just start there. And then I have another question kind of about that. But were you really excited, and did it work out well, or?
Oh, yeah, it worked out really well. I called the guy who was head of the division I was going into the night before we were supposed to meet. And I said, you know what, Scott, I'm not going to do this for a couple $100,000. The more I've been thinking about it, to your point earlier, Michael, I love my business. I love what I do. I love my people. I think we shouldn't even bother meeting. And he said, we're not talking a couple $100,000. I think we need to meet.
Right.
And the biggest mistake I made that let me share with your people.
Sure, please.
So I went to the meeting. He slid a letter of intent across the desk. And I was so excited with the number that I signed it, because I thought a letter of intent just meant the intention for us to continue this conversation. Right. They did not negotiate with me off that price.
Right.
So
were you still satisfied with that price though?
Yes, I really was.
Okay.
I was satisfied, but my lawyer thinks we could have gotten a little bit more out of them.
Sure.
But so never ever sign anything, no matter how excited you are.
Definitely.
But yes, it was a really good price. I don't think I'm allowed to disclose what it was, but it's always a multiplier of sales. And what it was, and I'll tell your viewers, because I think it's how most deals for consulting companies come down, is I got about 80% of that number up front when the deal closed, and I had to earn.
Right. So you had an earnout for, how long was your earnout for?
3 years.
Okay. So just for everyone kind of listening, watching, wondering what exactly an earnout is, right? So as you said, you got 80% in cash, and the remaining 20% of the payout, right, of the acquisition, the sale, you would earn that over the 3 years. And so I'm guessing you had to maintain or reach certain kind of targets in order for you to receive the full 20%. And if you didn't hit those targets, or you left early, then you would forfeit whatever you had not received of that 20%.
Exactly. And the nice thing with Gallagher was, while I was getting my earnout, I was also getting a very generous salary.
Right. Got it.
So that was sort of the best of both.
At what point did you decide to leave Gallagher and then start your next thing, which is HR topics, correct?
Yes. And that's what I do today.
Yeah.
So I was with Gallagher for 7 years. It was great. I loved it. I learned a ton, but I am not a corporate person. And in my last 18 months with Gallagher, they started having me go to offices all around the country, doing marketing meetings, giving value away to their clients about human resources to try to get them to become an insurance client. Right. So I was doing marketing events, essentially. Yeah. I loved it so much that I said, you know what, I'm gonna go try to do this on my own. So in 2013, I left Gallagher that summer. And I was fortunate enough that the very first year I spoke at the National HR Conference. And that really catapulted what I'm doing today. So now I do public speaking at conferences and conventions, and I do a lot of online training to HR people primarily. And I do a little bit of consulting, but only a very little bit.
And so the training work that you do, is that like, where do you get most of those clients from today? Does it come from your speaking and that then turns into clients, or does it come through some other direct kind of marketing outreach that you do? Like what's the source of those leads and clients?
Yeah, so they're coming from the list that I'm building. I've become a pretty big name in a very small market. And
Mm,
that is that I speak to what we call in HR the HR departments of one. So I am still in that model of really little HR departments.
mm,
So it all comes now through list building. I do a lot of free webinars. I do a lot of speaking for free, but it gets my name out there, that sort of thing. So it's all list buildings, but now I do a lot of social media. I do Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, that
got it. So
sort
you're
of thing.
trying a lot of different, and is there one thing within all that that you feel is working best for you?
Believe it or not, it's the webinars for other vendors that I do for
Talk about
free.
that, because yeah, I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of people,
Yep.
right? So you're going out to people who already have the audience that you want to reach. Are these
Yep.
like software partners or like companies, or what kind of company
So it's the
yeah,
exact same ideas I did 20 years ago. It is so it's payroll companies.
got it.
I do it a lot so it's again thinking about what vendors do my clients use,
Mm,
and the number of free webinars these vendors are producing, and then they want consultants to speak. I mean,
right,
it's a win-win for everybody. So I go out to, like, I just was at a HR conference, and I'll go around the exhibit hall and I'll give my card out to booths and
right.
say, do you ever do webinars for your clients? And almost all of them say yes. And
Hmm.
then I say, well, I'd love to talk to your people about that.
Right.
And it's
And how
driven.
often, when you give someone your card and say, I'd love to talk to your people about that, how often do they reach out to you, and how often do you need to follow up and reach back out to them?
You usually the right person won't be at the booth.
Right.
So what I try to do is I say, who in your company arranges the webinars?
Right.
And then I try to reach out to them. Um, maybe half the time
Okay.
it's effective, but I mean, it's effective enough.
Right.
I was talking to a payroll company at this conference, and I said, I do it for all the other payroll companies. You probably will want to get me on yours.
Yeah.
But I'm
Nice.
doing one next week. There are 18,000 people signed up.
I think that's a great strategy, right? It's all about leverage. Like a lot of people spend a great deal of time trying to create those relationships, or not even relationships. They just try and get in front of people. But if you can identify someone who already has the relationship or has the access to the people that you want to reach, right, then leveraging that is a much faster way to get in front of those people. So I think that's a great illustration and opportunity for everyone listening here to look at how to get their message and get kind of more visibility in front of the people that you want to serve. So this has been really, really beneficial, Lori. I want to thank you again for coming on here. There's so much more that we could cover, but I'm conscious of the
Right.
time here. So where should people go? What's the best place for them to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, people want even to just look at the website and see how they can build their own programs. It's hrtopics, TOPICS.com. Really easy. And I'm on LinkedIn. My name's been here the whole time. I'd love to link in with any of you, but I'm happy to let people peek behind the curtains and tell them how I create the programs I have available today.
Awesome. Well, Lori, thank you again so much. So we'll have all this linked up in the show notes. Just go to consultingsuccess.com. You can type in Lori Kleiman in the search box there, or even Lori, Lori, and you'll get all the full show notes, this transcript. We'll link up to the different resources. And if you do reach out to Lori, which I highly recommend that you do, please let her know what you enjoyed most about the conversation today, what you found most beneficial. We always like hearing that, and I know that the guests do too. So Lori, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael. It's been great. Bye-bye.